It seems that the boiling point of all this Hobbit queerness urge for LGBTQ fans of Lord of the Rings has reached a boiling point, or has been reached. And Philippa Boyens is coming in here and basically setting the record straight. God bless this woman. Welcome back, folks. This is your buddy Orange Hat here, ready to bring you some new content. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, Lord of the Rings screenwriter Philippa Boyens explains how Sam and Frodo have a real, genuine friendship without any political and sexual implication. Lord of the Rings film trilogy screenwriter Philippa Boyens made it abundantly clear that there was no intention to depict Sam and Frodo as sodomites, as many woke activists are attempting to do. Folks, I have been paying attention online everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, and other places where there are some very sick individuals out there who are trying to basically paint Frodo and Sam as lovers. Even though they never were lovers, they were simply best friends who shared a bond. Now let's get into it. In an interview conducted back in 2003, during the promotion of The Return of the King, Boyens was asked how the film depicts real sentiment between Sam and Frodo rather than manufactured emotion. She answered, "I think what I like about that is that Sam has, I think it is an understanding, a shared understanding, which is why he deliberately put in the beginning of the movie, or we deliberately put in the beginning of the movie, Sam's belief that there would be a return journey. It was very important. You didn't want to palm it. You just wanted to slip it in there. We didn't want to do a big, huge setup, just getting them there that Sam has an expectation that there will be a return journey." Boyens continued, "In that, I think that little scene where he says, 'I don't think there's going to be a return journey.' And Frodo looks up at him. Something passes between them, which Frodo actually already knew, which is there was no going back. They weren't going to survive this, and that's how they go forward. That's how they proceed, and that's part of their stoicism and heroism as characters. And the only reason they can do that is because they are together. And I think that is a lovely bond. And it's lovely to be able to do that between two male characters without any other kind of political implication or sexual implication. It's just the truth of friendship, a real, genuine friendship, and it's quite clean. There you have it. And also, by the way, before anybody tries to discredit Philippa Boyens, she's read the books inside and out. She's gone through all of the content that Tolkien has written. She knows it pretty much like the back of her hand. They needed to in order to make the movies they did. Now, am I saying that the movies were perfect and respectful to Tolkien 100%? No. They had their changes, which is understandable because you cannot 100% faithfully adapt Lord of the Rings. That's why Tolkien sold the rights for $1, the movie rights, because he knew that his works could never be 100% faithfully adapted. And I don't think he would ever support any adaptation. However, he did give Christopher Lee permission to play Gandalf if movies were ever made. However, Christopher Lee was actually cast as Saruman, who I think was a better fit for him. And I think it plays to the experience of J.R.R. Tolkien, who obviously went, and even though he hated the allegory of the World Wars, I think you can feel this was written by somebody who went through something like the trenches in World War I. she concluded. Interestingly, Tolkien informed biographer Humphrey Carpenter back in 1977 that Samwise was indeed inspired by his comrades in the trenches of World War I. Carpenter quoted Tolkien in J.R.R. Tolkien, a biography, "My Sam Gamgee is indeed a reflection of the English soldier, of the privates and the batmen I knew in the 1914 war, and recognized as so far superior to myself." Tolkien reiterated that these comments in a letter written to H. Cotton Minchin, dated April 16, 1956. He wrote, "My Samwise is indeed, as you note, largely a reflection of the English soldier, grafted on the village boys of early days. The memory of the privates and my batmen that I knew in the 1914 war, and recognized as so far superior to myself." Tolkien scholar John Garth also described the friendship or the relationship between Sam and Frodo. The relationship between Frodo and Sam closely reflects the hierarchy of an officer and his servant in the First World War. Officers had a university education and a middle-class background. Working-class men stayed at the rank of private or at best sergeant. Excuse me. He detailed a social gulf divides the literate, leisured Frodo from his former gardener, now responsible for wake-up calls, cooking and packing. British masculine reticence and class consciousness problematized the communications between batmen and officers, the odd couples of the battlefield. Tolkien maps the gradual breakdown of restraint through prolonged peril until Sam can take Frodo in his arms and call him Mr. Frodo, my dear. And no, that is no sexual connotation. That is simply a dear friend. By then, the hierarchy is largely inverted. Frodo moves toward a childlike dependency. He presents the problems, Sam the solutions. He asserts, in the First World War, this process was far from atypical. Officers were given commissions for class reasons, but not because they were experienced soldiers or leaders, whereas privates and batmen often had the age, experience, and wisdom their official superiors lacked. So basically saying officer schools and training schools and high living does not make a soldier. The experience of getting down in those trenches and the grit make the soldier. The experience of being a soldier makes a soldier. Garth goes on to cite C.S. Lewis's own personal experiences. C.S. Lewis, for example, had played Frodo to his sergeant Sam. "I came to pity the reverence the ordinary man, particularly dear Sergeant Ayres." Lewis recalled, "I was a feudal officer. They gave commissions too easily then. A puppet moved about by him, and he turned this ridiculous and painful relation into something beautiful. Became to me most like a father. Not a lover, a father." With the help of Sam's homely chatter, Frodo even laughs on the edge of Mordor. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth, Tolkien notes. This is the kind of laughter that war correspondent Philip Gibbs, in Now It Can Be Told, believed acted as an escape from terror, a liberation of the soul by mental explosion from the prison walls of despair and brooding on the Western Front. Basically, levity has a way of keeping dark thoughts and fear and terror at bay. Jokes can often lift a person's spirits in times where there doesn't seem to be any hope. He concludes, "Clearly, Sam and Frodo's friendship, as characterized and portrayed by Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings, was inspired by his own experience with his Batman in the trenches of World War I. It's even more than just friendship. It's total trust in another person. It's true love, not in the sexual way, but as St. Thomas Aquinas defined it, to love is to will the good of the other. So again, reiterated, there was no sexual relationship between Sam and Frodo. They were not ever going to be lovers in the story, nor were they ever lovers in the story, period. They were just very close bonded friends. What do you make of Boyens' commentary regarding the relationship of Sam and Frodo and how it was depicted in Lord of the Rings: Return of the King? I think that they actually did a good job. I mean, it's very ridiculous that they did parodies after these movies were done of like Ben Stiller and somebody else, like a Starsky and Hutch thing, where they were like, so when's the next sequel going to be out? It's not going to be a sequel. And so they start going elf on elf, elf on dwarf, hobbit on hobbit. That's basically where all this bullshit started. The joke of Hobbit on Hobbit, which was a frickin' parody interview between frickin' Peter Jackson and I believe Ben Stiller and some other guy. I can't remember the name or who it was. But all I know is that they're not homosexuals, nor would they ever have been homosexuals. Not with J.R.R. Tolkien writing this or writing the stories. So yeah, folks, there was never any gay characters and there was never any homosexual characters. That is because of the devout belief that J.R.R. Tolkien held. Now, does that necessarily mean that gay people and LGBTQ people cannot reflect and see themselves in the characters of Middle-earth? Absolutely not. They are absolutely able to. Or, yeah, that absolutely not was incorrect. Absolutely they can. Now, does that necessarily mean that characters in Middle-earth have to be gay in order to identify with them? No, they don't. Keep them straight. Learn to identify with characters based on more than just sexuality or skin color. Because here's the thing. The world is not going to abide by your whims simply because you don't feel represented because of your own shallow thinking. It is time that people realize this. We are not going to change simply because you want us to. Maybe you need to look at yourself, a little self-reflection, and say to yourself, why am I trying to force others to believe what I believe? You know who tried to do that in history? Tyrants. You know how many of them actually succeeded? None. All of them and their empires died very quickly because you cannot force somebody to believe what you want them to believe. There will always be somebody who has a difference of opinion, and that is okay. But also you need to have a more open mind. You tell people to have a more open mind, sure, they can have an open mind. But when you are limiting your own mind and saying, I can only identify with somebody if they are gay or lesbian or black or white, that is a limitation. That is not an open mind. You tell other people to have an open mind while closing your own. And that is why you fail to realize that there can be such things as very close personal friendships without any sexual connection. It is time that we have those relationships with friends. I have a relationship with a friend that is like a brother to me. We're close. We talk almost every day. He lives down in another state. I can't exactly visit him all the time. But we are not lovers. He has a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. But we are close as brothers, and if we ever had to do something as dangerous and harrowing as Frodo and Sam, you damn right we would be there for each other, supporting one another, because that's the bond of our friendship. Everybody should have something like that. And it does not necessarily mean that there has to be any sort of sexual implication there. Relationships and bonds are more than just about sex. They're about more, or a connection that transcends that, where sex is not even a thought, because shared experiences, warfare, and other things can make a bond that is closer than any intimate relationship, because you are seeing things that no one else can imagine. They can try to imagine it, they'll never get close. Anyway, folks, that is the video. You all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think of Philippa Boyens coming to the defense of Tolkien's works? Yeah. Anyway, folks, this has been Orange Hat. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will catch you on the next video. Until then, stay humble.